This is the digital channel of the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. I am Manoj Mainkar, and in the next half hour, I'll bring to you news updates from India and around the world, awareness videos on coronavirus by Government of India, and a lot more. We'll begin with the news updates.
This is the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. Namaskar, the news snippets. 27,74,801 people have recovered from COVID-19 in India. In the last 24 hours, 60,868 recoveries were reported. The recovery rate is 76.63%. 8,46,278 tests for COVID-19 were conducted in the country in the past 24 hours. President Ramnath Kovind, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi have greeted the people on the occasion of Onam. Prime Minister said the zest of Onam has reached far and wide. The verve of Onam can be felt everywhere. Union Road Transport and Highways Minister Nitin Gadkari virtually inaugurated 3 bridges and 2 road improvement projects worth 400 crore rupees in Maharashtra's Gadchiroli district. A brigade commander level meeting between Indian Army and People's Liberation Army of China is on at Chushul. Indian Army said PLA troops tried to violate the status quo as per previous consensus. Indian troops preempted the activity on the southern bank of Pangong Lake. India is committed to peace but is equally determined to protect its territorial integrity. States have started easing restrictions, especially on travel, hotels, and other economic activities outside containment zones. Unlock 4 starts from 1st September. Metro rail services in many cities would also start from 7th September. The National Jal Jeevan Mission has constituted a technical expert committee to prepare roadmap for measurement and monitoring of water services delivery in India's rural areas. China has reportedly arrested thousands of people for coronavirus-related crimes. They have been accused of killing health workers, lying about travel history, etc. More than half of Lebanon's population could face food shortage in the aftermath of the Beirut port blast. The UN has warned Lebanon is already facing an economic crisis. India and Russia were declared joint winners of the FIDE Online Chess Olympiad. A server outage led to the unusual result. And that is the end of the news snippets. Every voyage is inspired by a natural human longing of people to see and explore a new world. Travelers in ancient days used to get information about new places from merchant groups. What such visitors recorded later revealed to us details of our ancient history. Much of our knowledge of ancient and medieval Indian history comes from the accounts of foreigners who as pilgrims, travelers and traders crossed the seas and difficult land routes to reach India. In their writings on their observations and experiences of a country new and strange to them, they left valuable contributions to the historical understanding of early Indian society. In our program Travelogue, we bring to you some of the foreign travelers' account of India and their understanding of Indian culture and civilization.
India was sometimes called a golden bird. This appellation not only reflected its material riches, but also the richness of its philosophical inheritance and spiritual attainments. Both these allurements attracted fortune seekers from far and wide. Some came to this mysterious land to acquire wealth and riches, while others came to attain knowledge and spiritual salvation. India, in its turn, never disappointed her visitors. Some of these visitors have left a first-hand account of the places they visited, people they met, events they witnessed, and experiences they had. All these accounts are a treasure trove of information, a boon to any chronicler of the past. According to the famous historian K.A. Nilakanta Shastri,
the accounts of any country and its people by foreign observers are of great interest to the historian of the country, for they enable him to know what impressions the country made upon the minds of such observers, and to estimate with greater confidence the part played by it in the general history of the world.
The oldest foreign accounts of India which have come down to us are those by the Greek travelers. Although India figures in the writings of the Greek authors such as Herodotus, who is regarded as the father of history, and Tacius, who was a physician to the emperor in the Persian court, their works consist largely of incredible tales. The most realistic and perhaps the most important of these works is Indica, written by Megasthenes about 2300 years ago. Megasthenes was born in Anatolia in modern Turkey around 350 years BC. He was 24 when Alexander invaded India in 326 BC. After the death of Alexander, when his kingdom was divided amongst his military commanders, Megasthenes entered into the service of Sibertios, the satrap of Arachosia, a kingdom that can be identified with the region of the Arghandab Valley in modern-day Afghanistan and extending eastward up to as far as the Indus River in modern-day Pakistan. Around 301 BC, Seleucus Nicator, a general of Alexander who established his independent Seleucid empire after the death of his master, sent Megasthenes as his ambassador to the court of Chandragupta Maurya. Thus, Megasthenes became the first foreign ambassador to be mentioned in Indian history. Megasthenes entered the Indian subcontinent through the district of Pentapotamia in the Punjab region of modern-day Pakistan and then proceeded to Patliputra, visiting the holy city of Mathura on his way. During his travels, Megasthenes gathered first-hand knowledge about the country, its soil, crops, climate, flora and fauna, as well as about its natural features. He describes this country as stretching from the Himalayas up to the island of Sri Lanka, which he calls Taprobane. India, according to Megasthenes, was a vast country.
It is so big that it occupies the first position amongst the 4 parts in which southern Asia is divided.
He describes in detail India's 2 largest rivers, the Ganges or the Ganga and the Indus or the Sindhu. About Ganga, he writes,
India again possesses many rivers, both large and navigable, having their sources in the mountains, which stretch along the northern frontier, traverse the level country, and not a few of these, after uniting with each other, fall into the river called the Ganges.
About the river Indus, Megasthenes writes,
Another river about the same size as the Ganges, called the Indus, has its sources like its rival in the north, and falling into the ocean, forms on its way the boundary of India.
Megasthenes talks about roads that were lined with shady trees and rest houses, about trees that grew in India, especially the great banyan tree, the branches of which grew downwards and took root, and about the fertile land and the ambient climate.
The Indians enjoy pure air and drink the very finest water. The soil, being very rich, grows abundant means of subsistence. Rains visit the country frequently. In the course of 1 year, the Indians receive double rainfall, one during the winter season and the other in the summer season.
As a result, he affirms that famine has never visited India and that there has never been a general scarcity in the supply of nourishing food. Megasthenes also describes different species of animal life in India, particularly the lions, tigers, monkeys, apes or langur, sheep, goats, oxen, dogs and horses, as well as peacocks, talking parrots, flying serpents and winged scorpions of an extraordinary size. One animal that overwhelmed Megasthenes the most was the Indian elephant. He writes,
India possesses a vast number of huge elephants which far surpass those found elsewhere, both in strength and size. A private person is not allowed to keep either a horse or an elephant. These animals are held to be the special property of the king, and persons are appointed to take care of them.
Elsewhere, while describing the elephants, Megasthenes writes about India as
a nation which possesses a vast force of the largest sized elephants. Owing to this, their country has never been conquered by any foreign king, for all the nations dread the overwhelming number and strength of these animals.
In fact, Megasthenes goes on to narrate how the Indians caught wild elephants and trained them in the art of warfare.
India is prolific, besides in elephants, which are of monstrous bulk, and its soil supplies food in unsparing profusion, making these animals far to exceed in strength than those that are bred in Libya. It results also that they are caught in great numbers by the Indians and trained for war. They are of great moment in turning the scale of victory.
Megasthenes has described the people of India with great admiration.
It is said that India, being of enormous size when taken as a whole, is peopled by races both numerous and diverse, of which not even one was originally of foreign descent, but all were evidently indigenous, and moreover that India neither received a colony from abroad nor sent out a colony to any other nation.
About the simple life led by the common Indian folk, Megasthenes writes,
The Indians neither put out money at usury nor know how to borrow. It is contrary to established usage for an Indian either to do or suffer a wrong, and therefore they neither make contracts nor require securities.
Megasthenes has given a graphic account of the physical features, dresses, diets, and social customs of the Indian people. At one place he writes about the memorialization of the departed souls by the Indians.
Indians do not rear monuments to the dead, but consider the virtues which men have displayed in life and the songs in which their praises are celebrated sufficient to preserve their memory after death.
According to him, the people of India were divided into 7 classes according to their occupation.
These were philosophers, peasants, herdsmen, artisans, soldiers, overseers and spies, and councillors or assessors.
At the same time, Megasthenes admires the freedom-loving nature of the Indians.
Of several remarkable customs existing among the Indians, there is one prescribed by the ancient philosophers which one may regard as truly admirable. For the law ordains that no one among them shall, under any circumstances, be a slave, but that in enjoying freedom they shall respect the equal right to it which all possess. For those, they thought, who have learned neither to domineer over nor cringe to others will attain the life best adapted for all vicissitudes of lot.
Megasthenes travelled to Patliputra near modern Patna, the capital of the first major empire in India. He calls it Palimbotra and describes it as the greatest city in the world.
I have seen the great cities of the East. I have seen the Persian palaces of Susa and Ecbatana. But this is the greatest city in the world.
Megasthenes resided in Patliputra for some time as Greek ambassador at the court of the Mauryan ruler Chandragupta. He gives an elaborate account of the city of Patliputra and describes it as a large fortified city.
This city stretched in the inhabited quarters to an extreme length on each side of 80 stadia, about 12.8 kilometers, and that its breadth was 15 stadia, about 2.28 kilometers, and that a ditch encompassed it all around, which was 600 feet in breadth and 30 cubits, or 60 feet in depth, and that the wall was crowned with 570 towers and had 64 gates.
We are told by Megasthenes that houses in most of the Indian cities were made of wood and the royal palace at Patliputra itself was made of timber. Megasthenes mentions Chandragupta as Sandrakotos and describes him as a mighty king having a standing army of 6 lakh foot soldiers, 30,000 cavalry and 9,000 elephants, an estimate by which some conjecture as to the vastness of his resources could be made. Megasthenes praises the effective administration in the domains of the Mauryan king and gives details of the government machinery engaged in public affairs in large Indian cities.
Those who have charge of the city are divided into 6 bodies of 5 each. The members of the first look after everything related to the industrial arts. Those of the second attend to the entertainment of foreigners. To these they assign lodgings, and they keep watch over their modes of life by means of those persons whom they give to them for assistance. They escort them on the way when they leave the country, or in the event of their dying, forward their property to their relatives. They take care of them when they are sick, and if they die, bury them. The third body consists of those who inquire when and how births and deaths occur, with the view not only of levying a tax, but also in order that births and deaths among both high and low may not escape the cognizance of the government. The fourth class superintends trade and commerce. Its members have charge of weights and measures and see that the products in their season are sold by public notice. No one is allowed to deal in more than one kind of commodity unless he pays a double tax. The fifth class supervises manufactured articles, which they sell by public notice. What is new is sold separately from what is old, and there is a fine for mixing the two together. The sixth and last class consists of those who collect the tenths of the prices of the articles sold.
During his stay in Patliputra, Megasthenes composed his invaluable work Indica, which, it appears, was divided into 4 books. Unfortunately, the original of this work has perished with the vagaries of time. A few of its fragments, however, have survived in the form of extensive extracts in the works of the later Greek authors such as Diodorus, Strabo, Pliny, Arrian, and Eratosthenes. Of these writers, Arrian, on whose judgment most reliance is to be placed, speaks most highly of Megasthenes, while Strabo and Pliny treat him with less respect. It is true that his work contained many fabulous stories, yet these tales appear not to have been fabrications of Megasthenes, but accounts which he received from the natives, frequently containing real truth, though disguised by popular legends and fancy. It is quite possible that Megasthenes might have made mistakes in recording certain details. He may even be held guilty of an uncritical acceptance of Indian folklore, which might have led him to believe many fables as facts. His observations might also have been colored by his general tendency to judge the Indian culture by Greek standards. Nevertheless, his work Indica was indeed the first most complete account of India then known to the Western world, and we should remember that he certainly selected, presented, and interpreted his material in a way he thought would be more interesting to his Greek audience. Indica holds a place of great importance for the Indian historians because it was only through this work that in 1794 Sir William Jones, a well-known Orientalist and the founder of the Asiatic Society of Bengal, was able to establish the first firm date of India's history, that of Chandragupta Maurya.
In our program Travelogue, you were listening to some of the foreign travelers' account of India and their understanding of Indian culture and civilization. This program came to you from the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.
You are tuned to the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. We now bring you today's commentary. Prime Minister calls on startups to dream big. It is scripted and read by Kaushik Rai, AIR news analyst. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the country through his Mann Ki Baat program over the All India Radio network. In the 68th edition of Mann Ki Baat, Prime Minister said that the youth had enthusiastically participated in the Atmanirbhar Bharat app innovation challenge. He noted that nearly 2/3 of the entries were made by the youth of Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Awards have been given to around 24 apps in different categories, he said. He asked the All India Radio listeners to familiarize themselves with these apps and to connect with them. The Prime Minister mentioned several of these apps including Kutuki Kids Learning App, an interactive app for children, an app for microblogging platform called Kuku, Chingari app, which is becoming popular among the youth, Ask Sarkar app for getting correct information about government schemes, and Step Set Go fitness app, etc. Prime Minister Modi said that today's small startups will transform into big companies tomorrow and become the mark of India in the world, adding that one should not forget that big companies which exist in the world today were also once startups. Mr. Modi exhorted students and teachers to bring to fore stories of unsung heroes of our freedom struggle. Prime Minister said that when one thinks of his or her success, one is always reminded of a teacher. He said that the COVID-19 crisis has posed a challenge for teachers who have turned it into an opportunity by seamlessly embracing new tools and technology which they have passed on to students as well. He expressed confidence that teachers will play a significant role in disseminating the benefits of national education policy to the students. Noting that the country will celebrate its 75th year of independence in 2022, Prime Minister said it is imperative for today's students to remain familiar with the heroes of our freedom struggle. Only then can students get apprised about the history of our freedom struggle. Prime Minister suggested that a topic of research for students can be finding whether there were any events during the course of the freedom struggle in the districts they live in. A visit of students to a place in their town associated with the freedom struggle can be planned. Students of some schools can also resolve to write 75 poems and theatrical stories on the heroes of our freedom movement to mark the 75th year of our independence, he said. Prime Minister noted that these efforts will bring to the fore stories of lakhs of unsung heroes who lived and died for the country but have faded into oblivion. With Teachers' Day set to be observed on 5th September, Prime Minister Modi called upon teachers to start preparing and work towards creating an environment for the same. Mr. Modi noted that the month of September is observed as Poshan Mah, Nutrition Month. He said that nation and nutrition are very closely interrelated. He recalled the maxim, Yatha Annam Tatha Manam, which means that mental and intellectual development is directly related to the quality of our food intake. He said that nutrition and proper nourishment play a big role in helping children and students to attain their optimum potential and to show their mettle. He stressed that for children to be well nourished, the mothers need to receive proper nourishment. He added that nutrition merely does not imply eating but getting essential nutrients like salts, vitamins, etc. Prime Minister said that in a class, just like there is a class monitor, there should be a nutrition monitor. Similarly, just like a report card, a nutrition card should also be introduced. He informed that during the course of the Nutrition Month, a food and nutrition quiz as well as a meme competition will be organized by the MyGov portal. He asked listeners to participate in it. Emphasizing that India is endowed with a lot of diversity in food and drink, Prime Minister said, it is very important that according to the season of a particular region, a well-balanced and nutrient-rich diet plan be drafted to include local food grains, fruits and vegetables. That was today's commentary. Prime Minister calls on startups to dream big. It was scripted and read by Kaushik Rai, AIR news analyst. This broadcast came to you from the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.
This broadcast came to you from the digital channel of the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.